Now we're going to talk about spousal support. A lot of people think it's called alimony. In the state of California, it's called spousal support. So spousal support looks at, especially in a long-term marriage of 10 years or more, the court must consider spousal support. When there is a disparity of income, if one spouse has a much higher income than the other spouse, and there is a need by that spouse who earns less, and an ability to pay by the spouse who has the greater earning, then the court will look at support. There's two types of spousal support. There's temporary support. That means during the time from when you file for divorce until there is a decree or a judgment. That's called temporary support. Okay, and that's usually at least 6 months and a day, because you have to be separated at least 6 months and a day before you can even enter a decree. So that spousal support is determined by the same master. Remember we talked about child support and how we put in the numbers? The same thing. We put in those same numbers of your gross income and your deductions and your spouse's gross income and deductions, and then it spits out a number for spousal support and child support. And that is the number you have until you enter a decree. Now, long-term or supported judgment is different. And that is, we look at not only what is your net income, and do you have children or you don't have children. We look at various factors for support, and that's California Family Code 4320. So we looked at the age of both parties. We look at the health of both parties. If the supported spouse is unhealthy, then there might be a need for more support. If the supported spouse doesn't have a job at all, there might be some additional monies for retraining so that spouse can be weaned earlier. In terms of length of support, if it's a short-term marriage of less than 10 years, then the court can say this is going to end in half the term of the marriage or less. Okay? But in a long-term marriage of 10 years or more, the court is going to look with much more scrutiny, and they're not going to just end it after half the term of the marriage, unless both parties have a great deal of money. If we're talking about two movie stars that have millions of dollars worth of income, there's probably not going to be spousal support, although there might be child support. So we look at need of the supported spouse and ability to pay. And it really is determined by many different factors that in mediation we'll go over each one of those and we can negotiate those. In a court, the court looks at each of those factors and makes that decision. So I know sometimes it's very frightening for the person who has to pay for support. They feel, why should they have my money after we're divorced? But we look at the income, not the separate property assets, but the income from all sources for support. And then we determine that. We start with the disomaster, but then we must look at all of the different factors for support. So in mediation, we work it out. We help the supported spouse to get on his or her feet so that they can have an income. And we look at retirement income, Social Security, all sorts of things. So it may sound daunting and scary, but it really is something workable. And we want to have something that works for everybody so that the state does not want to have to take care of divorcing spouses. And that's why we have spousal support. How does that sound to you?
So it really is cheaper to keep her.